All right, so shared ownership and leaseholds in the UK. I've spoken about this before in a previous video, which received mixed reviews. Some people were saying, oh, this guy, you don't know nothing about property, shut up, which is fair, you could say that. And there are another half of people who agreed with me. I want to make clear, because property is a sensitive subject, because owning a property is like the biggest status symbol that most of us are going to achieve in our lives in this country. Believe me, if you see your future here in the UK and you're building your future around it, there's nothing better than owning a property in this country. But with the way things are going, tying yourself into a 25 to 30 year loan for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds for something that I don't think makes sense, because I don't think property prices in this country really make sense right now. And the fact that we're still technically on a recovery period from 2008. When you're on a trajectory back up, there's highs and lows, you know, it's not just straight highs. It can be, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, in my humble opinion, guys. But again, guys, if you disagree with anything I say, let me know in the comment section below. Tell me why I'm wrong about this. Tell me why I've got it wrong. Tell me why it's good. But today we're going to be talking about shared ownership and leaseholds. Recently, the BBC made an article about shared ownership, and pretty much what shared ownership is because property prices are so crazy right now, they came up with this solution to try and help people get onto the property ladder. Some people own 20 to 30% of their yard. Some people own 50%. Some people own 70%. It depends on what the amount of money you have can do. This article is titled "Shared Ownership, It's a Con and We Feel Trapped." It was touted as a stepping stone to getting onto the property ladder, but complaints have been made to the housing watchdog over repairs, costs, and selling. Now, this is more a problem with flats. You know, around the country, bro, you can't drive for more than 2 minutes without seeing a crane that's building a new set of apartments, bro. Wherever I go back to where I grew up in Harlesden, bro, I'm seeing a new building there, new building there. This has been turned into flats. This, like, every single time, the development is non-stop. But my cousin, my older cousin who works on construction sites, he was telling me that the standard of work has gone so low that he can't believe when he's building these so-called luxury flats, the materials that they're using. And that's why I think in the article they highlight repairs, because you'll get this place, you'll be thinking, yeah, I've got this brand new flat. Couple years later, these brand new flats will have problems that you wouldn't expect to find in a brand new property. You know what I mean? And you end up being the one responsible for all of these repairs, even though you only own 30% of the property. But the 70% that's owned by one of these private companies, they're not responsible to fix it because they're not living in it. They just own 70% of it. And another issue that is really a problem is the out of control service charges. But let's look at this article that shows the amount that the complaints keeps increasing every single year to the housing ombudsman. This means people have problems, and for you to get to the housing ombudsman, there's a bunch of steps you got to take beforehand to hopefully resolve the situation. Now, Diana, who told her story to the BBC, says, "We had none of the rights of homeowners and all of the obligations of renters. That's where this thing is a scam. They bought a shared ownership property in 2020 and decided to sell it the next year after finding it traumatic. But the problem with these shared ownerships is how hard it actually is to sell. I've seen quite a few videos on YouTube of people describing the horrors they've had to go through of shared ownership. And one thing they all say is how difficult it is to sell. It says here they had to sell through what is known as a nomination period, during which the housing association or landlord has the exclusive right to find a buyer for the shared ownership home. And another big issue is service charges. I'm sure you guys all remember Grenfell, that tragedy that happened, where they realized that the cladding they were using on buildings is actually flammable. And yeah, rest in peace to everyone who lost their life in Grenfell, bro. That was, I remember when it happened, bro. We'll never forget. We'll never forget. And still no one's been arrested for that. That just shows you. But if something goes wrong in the building, it's everybody who lives in the building that's got to pay for those repairs. If your building has a garden, you know, it has all these things are paid for by the people who live in that building. And it's something called a service charge. Now, the issue is that the service charges are just going crazy out of control. And that's because buildings are usually managed by private companies. And what do private companies want to do? Private companies want to make money. Hey, my people, Chung Lee asked if you could leave a like on the video. It'd be very much appreciated. It takes no time, costs nothing. Please like the video. Thank you very much. And look at the increase in complaints compared to other properties with shared ownership. And shared ownership has become popular recently. Kathy bought a 40% share with a friend in a 2-bedroom flat in North London in 2017. She pays a subsidized rent on the remaining 60%. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention as well, guys. You take out a mortgage to buy 40% of this place, but you still need to pay rent to the person who owns the other 60%. It's a complete joke, man, and I'm sure that sometimes it ends up being the same, maybe slightly more around what you'd be paying to rent the place, but you only own 40%. It's not yours. You need permission to sell it. You need permission to do things. It's not your property. She could either put most of her salary salary into her rent and have this feeling that should never be on the property ladder or have her own space. I love my flat, the community in terms of where the building is located, how close it is to London. There are all these amazing things, but it has mega downsides, particularly regarding finances and transparency and the level of service that we receive from the housing provider. Her service charge increased by more than £200 a month. Imagine someone's taking £200 a month extra from you, bro, and the economy's like this. Everything else is getting more expensive. Fatima, who said there's no way she would have been able to have got a mortgage, saw shared ownership as the only option to getting on the property ladder. That's the dream that they sell you, that you're on the property ladder. Technically on paper you are, but you're only 20% or 40% on the property ladder. There was an 80% increase in service charges within the last year. Fatima, and along with others in the block, complained and said they would not pay until the increase had been investigated, which is fair enough. And then this guy from the Housing Ombudsman said the government should address fundamental inequities in the shared ownership system. Because remember, all these complaints going to the Housing Ombudsman, bro, they don't want to deal with these complaints. It's just more problems for them. But there's a lot more to this. Like, as you can see, unresolved building safety issues, higher service charges, a short lease that the shared owner cannot legally extend. Just a bunch of headaches. It's just a mess. Look at this. Sue Robertson, her service charge increased by 320% in 4 years. Charged £720 to have a key cut. That's an interesting title. Damn, it does not look like this war is stopping. Jeez. We have examined about 140 court tribunals relating to the company Asset Hold and discovered that judges have assessed it to have overcharged homeowners by a combined sum of nearly 1.2 million. And that's what they're going to do. That's where the problem is. There are nearly 5 million leasehold properties in England home. In 2019, she was paying £750 a year in service charges, which is pretty reasonable. And she's living in a flat in a house. So there's 2 flats in one house, which is the norm in this country. It's the norm. But the freehold was sold at auction to a firm called Asset Hold. And when this company, Eager States, took over the management, a service charge more than doubled, like increase of 320% in 4 years, bruv. It's just mad. This company's overcharging like crazy. £38,000 of combined service charge was deemed to be unreasonable. And the company just refuses to cooperate. They refuse to follow the rules. The company's just fleecing people. £38,000 to fix lifts that were only a year old. Now, if there's somebody who works on lifts, knows about how much lifts cost to fix, like, let me know. Because I don't, if it's 38 grand to repair a lift that's 1 year old, that's mad. And the block's leaseholders were also overcharged more than 60k in electricity costs. 2.6k to put fire safety signs on 25 doors. The company is called Superior Facilities Management, who's billed tens of thousands for poor quality work. They tried to contact them, but the phone number listed online didn't connect and the website was defunct. The website hasn't submitted accounts. Oh my God, yeah, this is just mad. Then you've got ones like this. My 1-bed flat service charge is now 16k a year. These service charges are crazy. She owns a 30% share in the property and pays rent for the rest, but says the increase in her service charge means she'll go from paying an additional £350 a month to almost 1.3k a month. But I need to make sure I separate the two. There's a difference between leaseholds and shared ownership. Shared ownership is when you own like 30% of the place. Now with the leasehold, it's when you don't own the freehold. So when you're on a leasehold, you have to pay ground rent to the freeholder. I'm not sure how many houses operate like that. I'm sure a lot of the new houses operate like that, especially when they're building a whole bunch of houses on a piece of land. When you see these houses that all look the same, it creeps me out. But that's what the new build houses look like. I've seen a few of them like in Milton Keynes. So on top of getting a mortgage to buy the place, you're also going to be paying ground rent for the leasehold. So it's just mad. You know, I think they've been talking about trying to abolish leaseholds for a long time, but that's never going to happen, to be honest with you guys. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace and love to every single one of you.